Item number 2, any comments, suggestions, petitions by residents in attendance regarding items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 3. First being the engineer reports.
Hi there. I'll be brief. Nate Klein is here from Pannoni. One thing we're trying to do is give some of our consulting engineers more face time with you all. Nate is here today. Kelly from Remington and Vernick will be at Public Safety tomorrow. So just touch on a couple things. Materials for our roof are being dropped off Thursday, so we can get this project done. It's been a long delay while we wait on the supply chain there. But we're looking forward to getting that closed out. Grants, we have one big application due Friday for basically Part 2 Gay Street grant for the remaining intersections in our plan, as well as basically a pedestrian safety overhaul at Gay Street and New Street, which is really a dicey intersection. It's dicey to drive. It's extremely dangerous for pedestrians. We receive regular complaints, and we have to do something about that. So we're packaging that up as one application and really make Gay Street pedestrian friendly. High and Minor Street, we expect to start construction in October. I've been doing some outreach to the local businesses. There's one in particular that's going to be impacted by that project, so I want them to understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, how it's going to benefit all of Westchester, including their business when we break ground, and try to give them an expectation of, how it's going to affect their business. But yeah, looking forward to that getting started as well. And lastly, on stormwater, our fall planning of the rain gardens is underway, just about wrapped up. We're going to have some assistance from volunteers on Thursday down at Veterans Memorial Park out of necessity. Public Works did a fantastic job very quickly building a fence around the rain garden. There was a fence that went about 2/3 of the way around. It's next to a playground, and it was basically like a sandbox. And every time I went down there, there were plants ripped out and thrown on the ground, which we pay a lot of money to have planted. So before we were going to put another dime in the ground, we decided to fully enclose the rain garden to protect our investment. So thanks for Public Works to getting that done so we didn't have to delay any of the planning. Nate, you want to take questions or talk to Nate?
Mr. McCoy, if you don't mind, the grant money that we got from the county for the Gay Street project.
Yep.
Residents and myself have been thinking about how we should best spend that money.
Okay.
Project. People really weren't very thrilled on the whole with the original gating in the property.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's a good idea that we have a committee, an ad hoc committee made up of various entities and stakeholders to try to work through a dream plan, like building a playground, on Gay Street, you know what I'm saying? To give the people exactly what they think they want and the businesses, because the original plan wasn't really received that well.
So you want to repeat what we did, the exercise last year?
We don't really have to do the whole nuts and bolts because most people didn't fill out the surveys and stuff like that. A small group of residents, businesses, safety, to get together to try to come up with a dream plan for it. All the other stuff's really been done.
Yeah.
Basically, people are leaning towards ballards instead of gates to make it look like Harvard. Westchester will never be Harvard, but
Yeah.
that type of way of doing it. So I wanted to bounce that off you in committee to see what you thought about it, and I'd be happy to chair it. So it wouldn't be go sideways.
To be honest, it sounds like a repeat of the exercise last year. Okay, we had an ad hoc committee of engineers, staff, business owners, elected officials get together, brainstorm what the future of Gay Street would be and what the shutdown should be. I think the I won't say an overwhelming consensus, but a consensus amongst our elected officials was we love the closure. We want to continue it after COVID. Weekend feels right. That creates a lot of issues for us trying to deploy it and undeploy it. Ton of staff time. It's hideous. Concrete blocks. So I laugh at when the HARB submissions come up here every month, and we're like, oh, could you change the font on the sign because it's downtown? And then you go up there, and what do? There's concrete blocks. There's fluorescent signage. I mean, it's a joke. And the other thing is, and I want to choose my words carefully because I don't want to give the impression that Gay Street is unsafe. But if you recall, fire, police, and EMS opposed the idea after 2020, saying it's hard for us to do our jobs with this current setup. All of those things tell us that we need a convenient, sustainable in a operational sense, and safer way of shutting down the street. I understand, like, I remember reading, oh, it's gates, you know. How else are you going to do it? You can't do bollards because the underground utilities. I remember Randy Waltermeyer showing the slide. At the end of that public input process, there was a public input process brainstorming, all the, you know, sticker boards and white marker things, whiteboard. And then the second public event was the presentation from TPD, who handled that process. And I remember in there was a slide, and it was just what an intersection looks like under Gay Street in terms of utilities, bollards, any more underground infrastructure is a non-starter on Gay Street or most of our downtown. There's just too much going on there. So that really doesn't leave us with a lot of options. In my mind, this is not the Gay Street project. So that's another thing. Like, we're not going to do this project and it's over and we all walk away and move on. Going back to what I said, having the shutdown be convenient, sustainable, and safe for everyone, that is the immediate problem we need to solve. That's what we wrote the grant for the county to do. It was at Matlack, the bookends in the middle. I always say that. Matlack Street, Darlington Street, and High Street. We wrote that grant application. That's what the county gave us money to do. That's what the grant is for. And what we're trying to do with this second grant application is handle the middle intersections, Church Street and Walnut, and then that sort of, you know, very busy pedestrian access point to the open air market at New Street and Gay Street. And, you know, once we've gotten all of that, then we can start talking about, you know, amenities and more fun stuff. But we got to tackle the infrastructure first.
So if I may.
Sorry, that's very long-winded
Yeah,
answer.
I think sort of what Bernie's asking is what is the design process going to look like? What are we doing
Yeah.
with the grant money sort of specifically, and who all will be involved in that process?
Yeah, and I think I should have started with that. There's absolutely room for public input in the design process. But what it will probably look like is we have a short list of design ideas, and then we kind of group workshop them. But like any group decision-making process, a number of people are going to be unhappy, and they're going to be the most vocal.
If I could just suggest that next month, if you come back to the committee with a sort of an outline of what the process will.
Yeah, sure. Can do that.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Can I just mention that I met with people this morning, and the idea of public input on this particular portion was, they wanted to have a voice, but once I read to them what the grant that we got was for, they said, well, we don't have what is this voice going to be for? You've already got the money for these gates. The gates, I was shown multiple gates. Some were good looking and some looked horrific. So please be very careful with which gates you pick. And if we want to have some eyes on those particular selections, you know, let's share that. But the gates are the only thing that made sense when it came down to opening and closing and the underground stuff going on.
Totally agree. The type of Harvard gates, the wrought iron gates that look like you're walking into Yale, Harvard, just didn't fit downtown. But I can see the swing gates from one of them in each corner that will stop a car going 50 miles an hour. With a ballard on either side, and you can swing back and forth and be closed in 5 seconds and open in 5 seconds. Makes a lot more sense than wrought iron.
Yeah.
Well, I assume to your earlier comment, Harb will be involved in the process.
Yes, yes. Make sure you color code them properly.
Yeah. I mean, joking aside, like there's maybe we could have them lead the design process.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that's something that we should either discuss or at least give us an outline of what you're proposing next month.
I actually had another question from this morning. Is once this gets started, the actual construction, and we're building concrete pillars that are supposed to be rimmed in brick, I believe, but how much interference will this be to the Christmas shopping along Gay Street?
Like construction, I don't know. I don't know that it'll be impactful at all. You know, we don't have a precise, the idea is to be done with the grant we've already secured to be done with that construction by summer 2025. And I remember saying in a recent meeting, that's a long time, but being done by May next year seemed very ambitious, considering we don't even have a grant contract yet in place. So I can't really answer that question probably until this time next year, but we'll try to minimize it.
Thank you.
Yep. Nate?
Good evening, everybody. Nate Klein with Pannoni. Just really two quick things. Will touched on one great news Thursday. The remaining roof aspects will get started on so we can wind that project down. The pedestrian access over on 322 at the shopping center, that's winding down as well. We're just down to a handful of punch list items, including a drain pipe issue over there. So we're hopeful to close out both of these projects here. So next month we'll be done both of those ones. So those are my two kind of quick updates. Just make sure you're aware of those. Any questions? Easy enough. Thanks, guys.
Okay, item 3B, just departmental budgets, starting with Public Works.
Good evening, Don Edwards, Public Works Director. I've got two parts to this. The first one, I've reserved most of my time for the budget, but you should have received my monthly report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Do you have any comments or questions at this point, or just keep on going?
Yeah, I just have one question as always. Like to hear an update on the illicit discharge, and are we closing that out, and have we totaled all the damages?
We're still waiting for a final invoice. Well, the technical part of this is all finished, as you're aware, but the financial part is not. We're waiting for a final invoice from the environmental contractor, and we are starting to gather our in-house costs. And, we have apprised the solicitor. And so we're just waiting till we get that information, and then we'll come up with a game plan and proceed.
Thank you.
Request reimbursement. Okay. All right. Regarding the 2024 Public Works budget, you should have received the budget along with a memo from me that highlighted key information. As a summary, we are proposing the following changes. Eliminate the fleet manager position, enhance our landscaping and ground maintenance services by creating a crew leader position, adding a laborer position, and adding funding for a part-time horticultural profession. In addition, in the memo, I also highlighted significant variances from last year's line item budgets. For these variances, we are not changing any services, but the costs have changed for different reasons. Probably more of the variances costs went up, but there are some others that went down. And I'll be happy to answer any questions or go into further detail if you'd like.
One question, you noted that that change with the no fleet manager and then the crew wasn't reflected in the budget, but so the 88,000 increase in salary expense, what is that for?
Okay. Well, it's my understanding that that just assumes that a fleet manager position would be maintained. But we're proposing to change that. So we, you know, the net cost, the goal is for it to be zero. But this budget, I don't think it reflects those changes. It just has like total amounts in there that will probably be adjusted.
Thank you.
Are you referring to the fact that the GL code for salary expense has an
Yeah, and I think
$88,000
it just
increase
answered
year over
my
year?
own question at 5%, that would just be from regular increase.
We have most of the employees are union and we have a scheduled raise and there are 4% in the contract. So that accounts for most of that number.
Thank you.
Mr. McCoy. Question, Mr. Edwards, go back to the horticultural team.
Yeah.
Can you expand a little bit on that? Are we going to utilize in-house people? Are we hiring part-time people? Are we have to go out and buy all new equipment for these people to do their jobs? And what is their actual function?
Okay. So we would be hiring one new person, a laborer. The crew leader, I anticipate that we would promote. It's just a cost differential, you know, a salary increase but it would be an existing employee. As far as equipment and all that, I mean, we already obviously do grounds maintenance and landscaping. I just think that we can do better. And so we would use the equipment and you know, materials that we have, and we would just put more of a focus on, you know, the work that's out there. Yeah, I mean, and the horticultural professional, a couple things that person would do is, one, provide some in-house training for our employees so they know how to, you know, take care of the plants and the vegetation. And then the other would be to look at, you know, if there's a complaints that are brought to our attention, we'd be able to get a recommendation on any changes to make improvements out there.
But that is going to be professional services at a part-time rate.
Yeah, it would just be somebody who we would hire. We would manage the budget. I mean, there's a certain number I have in mind, $20,000. But it would be very part-time.
Okay, the conditions, are we being proactive based on the conditions that we saw this past summer at the various publicly owned buildings that we got complaints about? Is this what's generating the situation?
Thank you. Absolutely. You know, one thing that we would have this crew do is be proactive and go out there and inspect so that we don't react when people are, you know, make complaints. So that is a big part of what we're talking about.
And they're going to make, I'm only following up on this because it's an added expense,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
We are saving on the fleet manager, which is big.
Mhm.
Okay, great job. Like I said, the Kathy Brooks and you guys down there. So outside the police department, it's going to look like a professional office building with flowers and no weeds.
Well, let me,
Your goal?
oh, that is definitely the goal.
Okay.
I think, but yeah, I think there's some steps before we get there. And one of them would be, you know, we would like, you know, get a plan, you know, and if it's going to be a significant change, then we would have to bring that through, you know, the process so that we all agreed and everybody knew what money was going to be spent, you know, to do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, because I stopped taking the public service people there to pull weeds because they just kept coming back
Yeah.
in front of the police department. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's a great idea. I'm not thrilled that we're hiring another professional because I think Penn State, you know, would do a good job for us. But the first year going around,
Yeah.
a part-time person. I think if we pick their brains, you don't need to, reinvent the wheel year after year.
Yeah.
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 So thank you. I appreciate it.
So, Mr. Would this potentially eliminate the need for, the firm that we hire annually for tree trimming, et cetera? Or is this in addition to that?
This is separate from tree trimming. This would just be the plants and flowers and
Anything
shrubs
just on the ground?
on the ground. On the ground.
This matters to me. So thank you very much for doing this. This is necessary, important. We have a beautiful borough.
Yeah.
I would like to
Yeah, we want.
know that.
We want to meet that standard, that Westchester community.
The only other question I didn't see, statement I didn't see up there is how we're doing with bulk trash pickup. Is in your reports, we're still doing that, right?
Yes.
And we're still charging people for doing what
Yes.
it is.
Yes.
And are we covering our costs, or do you know what the cost?
Yeah, it's been a little while since that was discussed, but what I remember is the money coming in is basically covering what, our expenses are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, moving on to the wastewater budget. Sure.
Dale Friends, 511 West Minor Street for the Tree Commission. I was expecting there'd be a little more detailed discussion of budget tonight, but will that be another day that we'll talk about the proposed increase in the tree budget? It's great with me. It's to do it another day.
If there's something you want to comment on it specifically, we're happy to. deal
Well,
with that.
I'm not sure what all has been. Sorry? This is the time? Okay, so,
This is our first initial meeting to talk
Okay,
about the
okay,
budget, so.
okay. So folks know about the proposed increase from the, yeah, please.
I think it was made clear, but we added $20,000 to the tree budget for systematic pruning. And that's all that we have in there right now. And I know the Shade Tree Commission would like more.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah, and again, I received a document, Westchester tree budgets. Is this from you or was it generated by Jeff Bytel?
Started it probably.
Okay.
Bottom one probably is too.
Okay, so the proposed budget is a total of $220,000 and the tree commission's budget is $348,000. So it's about $120,000, of which 20 is already proposed by Public Works. 240, okay. Got it, 220, so it's 240 versus 340. So there's like $108,000 delta there. We believe that at this time that increasing the tree commission budget is very important because we continue each year to lose our trees. And even though I have no science to back this, I moved to Westchester in 1982, and I think we have lost 50% of our trees in the borough since then. And I don't know where the curve works, and my numbers could be wrong, but I don't think so. Just going from street to street, even in my neighborhood on the southwest side. And it's going to continue to slide as long as we keep basing our tree budget on it in isolation. Trees are an amenity to the borough. They're also green infrastructure, which I'm not going to give you the lecture on green infrastructure. Other people do that. But if we just think about the positive side of trees as far as an asset to the borough and compare it to recreation, the recreation budget is 2 times what our budget is. And does that make sense in terms of how the community is benefited? parks, recreation, street trees, they all come together. I feel that trees, and I hope you think about this as well, that trees are on a par with recreation budgets as far as the quality of life in our borough. And the additional funds that we're asking for is not to increase the number of trees, but rather to improve the planting. Because I think everyone is frustrated with the number of young dead trees in the borough. And the mortality rate is just terrible. And part of it is because of the lack of sufficient preparation for the tree wells that they go into. Because, you know, we can't hope to grow great oaks out of 2-foot square tree wells. It's just not going to happen. There's no nutrients or water. We're also asking that a tree inventory be funded, that we do not have a comprehensive inventory to even know what the basis is for managing them, what the status is of the trees, where we are. Our approach to trees is we plant them, and when they cause problems, we cut them down, or when they die, we cut them down. We don't do any treatment. We don't do any structural pruning of young trees. And the tree inventory is an important first step. We ought to be visiting all of our trees once a year at least. And this could be a public works crew. It could be the new 3-person landscape crew that just walks down the street, cuts off all the root suckers that are showing up at the base, and elevates the trees. That is, remove the low-hanging branches that you've received so many complaints about. And then every 3 years, each tree would be visited by a professional pruning company who would then cut out dead wood and do any additional major changes. So again, I'm not quite sure how the budget process works, but I hope that this $348,000 budget is considered rather than only the $220,000 budget. Even if you said, look, you guys, we can't do this forever, but we recognize that there's a short-term need to try to turn things around and get things heading in the right direction. And we hope you'll support us. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I obviously support the more trees. Has the tree commission provided that to Mr. Edwards? I haven't seen it, so.
The budget? Yeah. The $348,000 budget. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
The delta, the $100,000 delta, it'd be probably very helpful to find out between Mr. Edwards' department and the tree commission where what will make up the delta of the $100,000. Because just asking for an extra $100,000 doesn't, we haven't seen anything.
True.
So if Mr. Edwards can, bring it to us at a later date and show it to us to see where
Yeah.
the delta is.
Yeah, and so the breakdown would in part show you that, but the tree commission could also furnish to you some additional narrative to explain it.
That'd be really helpful. I don't think
Yeah.
any of us
Okay.
have it
But-
or have seen it, so.
No,
But I guess we need to know what the timing is because
hopefully.
quickly. So is your October meeting too late?
No, I don't think so. Do you?
Okay, okay,
We
right.
don't, Mr. Metric, we don't approve the budget until the preliminary budget, we approve at what, October, the end of October, November?
Yes, there's certain time guidelines in the administrative code. So council does have to approve the preliminary budget in October at the business meeting. And you have November or December to approve the final budget.
Right, so
Okay.
sooner, more quicker than you think,
Okay,
okay? Because, I think we all understand the mortality rate. We've been planting the same tree at 20 North New Street for 6 years, and it dies within 6 weeks.
mhm,
And it has nothing to do with watering or anything like that.
right.
Has to do with, the environment that it sits in. So,
Right, right.
so
And-
that'd be
and-
helpful. Yeah.
And part of that is prudence as well. If we know we can't keep a tree to survive at a location, hold off planting one, just don't plant one. And yeah, thank you.
Can I ask a question here? If we're talking about $100,000, can we be looking for grants for this? And I'm asking this of Mr. Metric and Mr. Williams.
The answer is maybe. I don't know about $100,000, and grants are usually not funding operational expenses. They're not going to pay a consultant or a salary. They typically purchase things that people can cut ribbons in front of or use. So I wanted to maybe add one thing to the conversation to help with context, if you don't mind. Right now, and this is very preliminary, you'll get better numbers when I talk next Tuesday about the whole budget, because that's the moment we get the whole thing together. And I mentioned earlier, we've got a gap in wastewater and we've got a gap in the general fund. The gap in the general fund is looking to be about 4%, which is about $800,000 right now. And that's a bigger spread than where we were at this time last year. This time last year, we were talking about between 1 and 1.5% gap, and we were able to solve that pretty easily. So that's what $100,000 means.
Mr. Metric, I just have a question, and Mr. Williams. So in the stormwater protection fee budget, we have street tree planting for 25. Is that in addition to the public works budget for it, or is that, okay, it's different?
Yes, that's in addition.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item B, wastewater budget.
Good evening, Sean Mitchell, Goose Creek Superintendent. How you doing? Good. This year's presentation, we're hitting on basically 5 things: the department overview, the employee status, the staffing under that, the sewer revenue, operating expenses, and the 5-year capital plan. Quick overview, there's 2 treatment plants in the borough. Goose Creek built in '88. We are hydraulically designed for 1.86 million gallons per day. Taylor Run was built in 1984. They're hydraulically designed for 1.80 million gallons per day. We have 3 pump stations that go to Goose Creek, College Avenue, New Street, and Worthington Street. One that goes to Taylor Run, that's the Minor Street pump station in Everhart Park. The wastewater department operates and maintains both plants and all 4 pump stations 7 days a week, 365 days a year, but only 8 hours a day because we have 24-hour emergency call-out boxes and notifications. At this time, the 2 Seans and Mike Finley, we are looking at restructuring the management of the wastewater department. The budget, as Sean said, is not balanced as of right now due to a couple of things that I'll get into. One is we're trying to restructure. 2 is pay rates. We are down big time compared to other local municipalities. That will be brought up more next week, Tuesday, by Mr. Metric in the full budget. We're still looking at different things for that. The next would be, that was just a quick, if you can go back one, Bill, that's just a basic flow chart of the forward. The flow chart of the 2 plants with the operators, the maintenance foremen, the operator techs, the lab techs in both plants. The revenue, the industrial revenue is down a little bit, mostly because of the hospital. They have a wing that I was told through the hospital management in the old wing. The new wing goes to West Goshen. It's in West Goshen Township. The old wing, they did mothball, and then when Jennersville was closed, they opened back up. Our revenue went up a little bit. Now that they're back open, they're starting to mothball again. Our revenue goes down because the flow's down. We're looking that the outside hauling is going to stay the same. As of right now, McGovern is our contracted hauler in. Unless something changes with flow, hydraulic loadings, building in the borough, then they could stay the same for the outside revenue. So we're keeping them basically the same. Operating expenses are three big hits to the budget this year. Number one is sludge removal. It could be at worst a plus 68% increase. The 5-year, or I'm sorry, it was a 3-year contract with 2 1-year extensions for 7 cents a gallon. We dug around and we used 10 cents a gallon for the cost of disposal, diesel, manpower. Per Mike Finley and I went through the how many gallons we were looking to haul out per plant. We're looking to haul out 9,880,000 gallons next year of sludge. Taylor Runs is up a little bit because of the tertiary filter system. We're getting cleaner effluent, which is causing more solids to settle, send to the digester, so we get rid of them. It's cleaner to the environment. So we use that as a worst case number, 10 cents a gallon. That would be the $988,000 per year. The contract, we're hoping it goes out to bid and it will be back for the October meeting for the budget. We're hoping that 10 cents is not even on that contract. But we use that as the worst case scenario for now until the budget is, till we figure it out. The second would be polymer. It's up 50%. That's just the cost. We were told it could possibly go up again, but our salesperson is, with the amount that we buy, he's really trying to stick with our price. Again, it's used for settling, all per the environment. It's NPDES permit driven that we have to use something to regulate our solids going out into the stream and discharge. So it's just something that we have to deal with right now. It could be something further down the road during a capital project, probably 4 or 5 years with that sludge dewatering, where we could go to a cheaper liquid polymer. And the other one would be the aluminum sulfate. That one removes phosphorus. And again, to the DEP, they said that their aluminums were high, so we had to put a tertiary filter system in to remove everything. The sulfur, or the aluminum sulfate removes the phosphorus. The tertiary filter system removes the aluminum. So that contract expires, I believe, March, and they're expecting that to go up. So we kind of built that up to cover the cost of that. That's a smaller version. If you guys can see, I know you have copies of it. What happened with phase 2 and 3 of the substation? We're hoping to have a process or a bid for the large electrical substation. We were told that once we put a down payment down, it's an 80 to 88 week delivery. So what we plan on doing is putting 25% down, or $250,000 down next year, but we're shifting all of 2025 to 24. So we're not holding up anything. We're moving, we're replacing pumps that are 40 years old that we can't get parts for anymore. The digester gas, it should be done hopefully this year, but what we found, that's row 11, is the roof around the digester gas is starting to leak. So we have that budget to get that replaced. Sludge pump grinders to be replaced. We even put $20,000 in for technological upgrades. A lot of that will go to Taylor Run because they have a very slow dial-up, where they just got out of dial-up. That's how far back they are. They're so far off the road that it's going to cost probably $8,000 to $10,000 just to run cable into the plant. With the cartograph coming up, both plants are just starting. Goose Creek's a little farther ahead. We've run the fiber cables and we're trying to make it more efficient and effective ways that we can control and use the technology. And Billy and Jeff are helping us out with different ideas. RBC blocks are a common thing. We're also helping with the purchase. We're the third of a purchase of a vacuum truck with stormwater protection and public works for the sanitary and stormwater sewer systems to be cleaned out and all that good stuff. And the one that really threw us for a loop would be conveyance repairs and improvements are put into it because of sewer lines that need to be upgraded, replaced for the conveyance system going to Goose Creek for some of the bigger projects that are happening in the future. Then it kind of basically balances out. It's 1.2 for 24, 1.5. That's the shift. And we do have grants to help pay for that. Then we're dropping down to under $1 million for the next 3 years after that and leveling out. And that's our goal for there to stay as instead of a wave, we're trying to just balance everything out over the 5-year period. That's basically wrapped up what I just said with the capital budget. And I believe that's it. Any questions?
I have 2 questions. It just occurred to me that, you know, the projected sludge removal is greater than salaries, which is insane. So the idea of dewatering, I mean, if it continues to rise at 50%, 65%, does it make sense to move up that process to design?
Well, we have to get the electrical substation done first. If that's not done, I can't even run the machines for that.
Great point. Okay. Appreciate that.
What I like to say during tours is the electric substation's the heart of the plant. Or at Goose Creek, we're an aerobic system. Our big blowers, which we have in next year to replace one of them that's on an emergency run only, that's the lungs of the body of the plant. And then everything just flowing through it is the blood. So you have to keep the oxygen and everything moving or everything stops and then you have a real big problem.
And so the 18-month or the 80-week delay for the equipment, is that?
That was from all 3 vendors. They are the 3 major vendors that do all of the design and building of them. And all 3 of them basically said, they told us enough that we can say, okay, we can go to bid, but they said they're not doing any designs until they get a deposit. They're not putting any engineers on because they're that busy and that far behind.
Wow. Okay. Well, my second question was just related to, in the budget, under the operating budget that you gave us, the capital expenses is placed in there as well.
Correct.
And we don't do that for other departments, correct?
We're trying to keep all sewer in sewer. We even moved the maintenance domains that was,
Transfer to the general.
yeah, that went down a little bit. That the transfer to the general fund is the cost for administrative time, whether it be the manager, the finance, whether it's the public works director, public works crew. If they're doing any work on it, that is part of all that. And plus more, if there's more to, that's just a general.
The expenditure is going to become, expenditure for capital items is going to be coming out of the sewer fund. So there'll be checks drawn on accounts that are part of fund number 8, the sewer fund. So that's why we show it as a current year expense, capital expense. What I've been doing and what Sean and I have been talking about and because all these things are in process and we spend a lot of day working on them. So you're getting a snapshot of where we were, last Thursday afternoon, and now it's Tuesday. So we've progressed. And what we're doing with Grant, if you could keep it on this slide, Bill, this is the perfect slide, actually. If you look at the highlighted numbers for grant revenue, tap and fee, and capital expenditures in the budget that was part of an attachment with the meeting materials, capital expenses behave just like that line does in that chart. And if you're putting the actual costs into your operating expenses every year, it makes budgeting very difficult because I have to come to council and say, all right, well, council, the wastewater capital budget's going up $200,000 next year, so we have to ask for revenue or cut some services. And it makes it very difficult to manage the cash flow and the money. So what I want to move the whole borough towards, and I think wastewater is particularly well suited to do this, and I've done the preliminary work on this in the last few days, was take our estimates of grant revenue and tap and fees over a longer time horizon, a 5-year time horizon. That gets us out of the guessing game as to when these big projects are going to come, are going to fruit, so to speak, and pay their big tap-in fees, because the tap-in fees are pretty big. If we plan our capital projects over a 5-year time horizon, then we can just transfer or spend, so to speak, a very predictable amount of capital every year. And that's what I'm shooting for. And so this budget's going to look a little different next Tuesday. I don't know if I answered your question, but
Sort of. I mean, I get it over a 5-year horizon, but just talking about 2024 and the operating budget, I guess I'm just confused why the capital expense is in there. It's part of the capital budget.
you're right in your confusion. The way it's always been presented is a little confusing. There has to be an annualized amount going from your operating budget to support the capital assets you have to run your things. There has to be some money being put aside every year to help pay for the next roof that has to be put on this building, or the next vehicle that needs to be purchased, a big, large vehicle. So there's always has to be an expense. There has to be an expense in the operating budget for your capital assets, but we should not be budgeting where that number fluctuates a lot year over year. We should make it very predictable, so that when we're going and asking for tax revenue to pay for these things, or EIT revenue to pay for these things, or in the case of wastewater, we're setting our sewer rate, it's more predictable, and Dale doesn't get a 15% increase in his sewer bill year over year because we have to build $1.9 million of capital infrastructure next year. I want it to be predictable, and the wastewater fees do have to go up, but it should be a little bit every year, and it should be predictable. So that's why I'm excited about this. That's why I'm talking a lot about it, because it's the direction I want to take all of our budget.
The other departments are going to be doing the same thing. I mean, right now, they're not set up that way in these budgets that we've seen so far.
Only wastewater is making that transition, and then hopefully our next evolution is going to be towards. But in order to do this, we need really good 5-year plans, and wastewater has always had the best 5-year plans. So, thank you, Sean.
Nice job, Sean. Thank you.
Thank you. So three things, Sean, couple. So we don't know how COVID's doing because out of the Chester County Hospital. So because we're not dipping in and sending it to the county anymore.
COVID, we are still getting reports. I don't know off the top of my head what Taylor Runs is.
Yeah.
Goose Creek, I believe we're under 10 cases per 100,000.
Okay, that's pretty good.
As soon as we dropped down, we had one little spike back around February.
Right.
It's Valentine's Day.
Right.
And then we are very low, almost nothing.
Okay, a couple other things. The electrical project for Taylor Run, I think you touched on it. You're going to try to do that in 24.
Electrical?
The Taylor Run, we have electrical project supposed to go down there. Taylor Run public, electrical work. Is there a substation or something supposed to go in Taylor Run?
That's Goose Creek.
Oh, it's Goose Creek?
Yeah.
Okay. When's that going to happen? Is that
That
24?
we're hoping that it goes out to bid this year.
Okay.
That the deposit goes down very
Yeah, yeah, I remember
early
you
in
said you-
25 or
Right.
24, I'm sorry. And then it's delivered in 25 and finished in 25. That's
All
what we're shooting for, especially with the hopes of the grants.
Yeah. This question, I'm looking at you, but I'm also talking to Billy Mann. Instead of running all those cables underground and costing a fortune, why don't we use Starlink, like the government does, to do all their website? I'm looking at you and Billy Mann. He's already listening to me. So
I have no idea. About that.
anyway, Sean. I'm exhausted on wastewater. We spent about $30,000, experts telling us what we needed to do to raise revenues to make this department run. We raised the rate 3% a few years ago, and it didn't do a whole hell of a lot. Hopefully you're going to come to us. I mean, we all have to pay it. It's a user fee, based on, your house and that, but we can't, we've been told that we have to raise rates 30%. That was 25 to 30%. That's that's kind of ridiculous at one shot. But as you mentioned, raise the rates enough each year, that we get to that rate where, the experts told us we had to do it. We seem to keep wanting to ignore, raising the rates because it's not popular. And I don't want to pay it, but I have to. But we can't keep our plants running, with Band-Aids. We're going to have to bite the bullet 1 year or, whatever, it's a user fee. So it's, it's not popular, especially in an election year, but it's something that has to be done instead of just kicking the can, keep down the road. Because these guys running the plants can't keep fixing the plants if they don't have any money to do it. It's my editorial. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Parks and Recreation.
Evening, folks. That comes later. Keith Karowski, Parks and Rec Director. Before we get started on the budget, I did want to touch on the monthly report. Did you have any questions regarding that? Wanted to just touch on two things really quickly. The very beginning of August, the Parks and Rec Department partnered with the Westchester Police Department on the second annual Night Out Against Crime / Touch a Truck Day. It went superbly. This is the second year in a row that we've done that together. I anticipate that being the same moving forward. And this is our collaborations, Parks and Rec with the Public Works Department. We work hand in hand with them on every project pretty much takes place in the parks. A couple I wanted to touch base on were the updated fall zones at Everhart Park by the small fire truck, at the 2 to 5 year old playground, and at Mosteller Park. I believe that was completed the end of last week on that fall zone, which took a little bit more work because we had to, once you start messing with a fall zone, you have to do it to the current standards, and the current standards were a little different than the old ones, but that's been all up to date and up to code. As Will talked about earlier, the guys from Public Works installed the fencing around the rain garden down at Veterans Memorial Park. That was completed today. And they also started on the story walk installation at Hoops Park, which will be hopefully done the rest of by the end of this week. And then we'll be moving into mounting the signs and then planning the function with the library as part of their grant that they got from the county. They have to have an event, kind of a kickoff ribbon cutting ceremony. That probably won't take place until early October. Just wanted to touch on that quickly. We can get into the budget. Good thing I'll say right off the bat, if you look at the budget, there is no increase from the Parks and Rec Department. There's actually a decrease. The core responsibilities, working with Public Works, taking care of our parks and our corresponding third-party subcontractors, making sure our parks are operational and safe for everyone to use. As we just mentioned with the wastewater plants, we have to invest in our parks. I mean, that's part of the Rec and Park Master Plan process that we're going to be going through over the next year is making sure that our parks are up to snuff and that we're looking in that direction moving forward. We're always looking to collaborate and communicate with our neighbors, the university, the school district, West and East Goshen, East Bradford, Westtown Township. We're always looking to combine our efforts with them. Our budgets are always a little tight, so if we can collaborate our efforts and put our minds together, we can work on things that are, benefit the greater Westchester area, not always just the borough. Event management, the only thing I could see possibly changing next year, and that'll be part of the budget conversation and the staffing, I'd like to bring back Swing and Summer Thursdays as part of our, we currently have a concert series. We had Swing and Summer Thursdays for the first many years here. It would not interfere with the Gay Street closure. I have some ideas in mind, along with myself and Isabella, our current program coordinator, that we could do that without too much of a hitch. Next slide, please, Bill. We're just going over the 2024 dates and activities for our events and programs. Reminder, you saw on the door, next Sunday, Chester County Restaurant Festival, downtown Westchester. I expect to be as big and as bad as ever. It's going to be a good time. Mother Nature's looking pretty promising at the moment, and we'll go from there. Next on the docket for us would be, go back one. Go forward one. And again, there you go. One thing I'd like to bring back in our programming is we did bus trips for years, up to 10, 12 bus trips a year. The residents want them. They seem to like them. There is really no risk involved for us from a monetary perspective. Any trip we run, we do not run unless it at least breaks even. So if we have a trip, most buses are 47 or 54 passenger. We'll get a quote for a company to go to, say, let's say on this one right here, New York City on your own in May. The cost of the trip is $21.79. We'll base that on 45 seats. We're selling the seats at this X amount of dollars. Once we hit our number, we're in a profit. We're not just getting revenues, we're creating a profit at that point in time. I'd like to bring back 5 trips next year, the 5 that I have listed here. Those are 5 trips that we've historically done that have done very well, that have sold out, that we've waited on, we've had wait lists for. It's really a matter of whether, I guess, the committee and council would be interested in us getting back into that particular aspect of the recreation side of things from Parks and Recreation. I believe that between the phone calls and emails we get and the folks that keep asking, when are you going to bring these back? When are they coming back? I think they would do very well. Like I said, there really is no financial risk. All the companies we use, when we're doing day trips, it's craft coaches. They're just outside the borough. They're licensed, they're insured. And if we do overnight trips, which in this case here would only be the one to the Finger Lakes, we use a company called Loewy's Group Tours, also licensed and insured. We've used them many times before. Our neighbors use them as well. It's just something else I'd like to bring back that our program coordinator can help promote and plan and organize as well. Next slide, please. Again, just these are more of the programming that I want to see our program coordinator doing. I want to see more summer programming. We're never going to have, most likely not going to have our summer camp like we had. Again, we still get calls, we still get emails about that as well. But I want to provide more summer programming at our facilities. Hoops, Everhart, and Marshall Square especially. Those are the big 3, but of course, those are the 3 that have restrooms at the parks. They have the biggest, nicest playgrounds. And I want our program coordinator, working heavily on making sure that our families in this area have something to do with their children, something enriching, and not just like the summer camps we used to do where we hired in staff or in-house staffing. We're not doing that anymore. These are all third-party subcontracted. So it's working with these companies to make sure that we're offering what our residents want. It is daunting. It is challenging because not everybody wants the same thing, but it's up to the program coordinator and myself as her supervisor to make sure we're offering the best and safest amount of program we can. Next, that brings me to the program coordinator. The only staffing change I would like is to see that go from a part-time seasonal to a full-time position. The current position we have, Isabella Ryan, has done a fabulous job. She was there in my absence. She was a diamond in the rough. I think she would do even a better job on a full-time basis and be able to devote her time, all of her time and efforts to this. Even with this increase, again, our budget does not increase overall for the year. Next one, Bill. our 5-year, or excuse me, our cap plans for next year, we're keeping them small until the rec and park plan gets updated. So these are somewhat minor improvements. The main one you see would be the rec and park plan. We just submitted a grant last Friday for $40,000 to the county. We'll know sometime in November, December, whether or not we've gotten that grant. I really feel positive that we will. But that's going to take a lot of my time next year too. I mean, this is going to be a significant undertaking that we've never done before here at the borough. And I think it's long overdue and it's going to be worthwhile in the long run. The other smaller projects, a lot of those we can do in-house with our Public Works Department. As I mentioned earlier, we work hand in hand with them. Our guys are great. They know what they're doing. They have the expertise. We just got to provide them with the right equipment to do so. And next question, or next one, that's for you guys.
Couple questions.
Sure.
So under the operating budget, the expenses for Restaurant Festival and the Turk's Head are both down 14, 17%
Yes.
respectively. How are you doing that? And the revenue is also down.
If you look at it, it goes back into the sponsorship dollars. The sponsorship dollars in the previous year were calculated to those individual line items. And I've made it a point to I guess the way I want to say it is like to just have the sponsorships be their own separate line item. But I will present you with a report every year as I do for finance that shows you where every dollar of sponsorship is going to. So the sponsorship line item of 0 from 23 is now 30,000 for next year. So that's where we're making up the difference.
Okay, so, and then Swinging Thursday would fall into that?
Same thing. Again, most of our sponsorships, everyone wants to be part of either the Restaurant Festival or Turk's Head. Those are the two big draws. Throw in the Halloween parade next. I always try and package those events with the smaller events that don't get quite as much love. So a sponsor that come in and say maybe at $8,000, $5,000 might go to the two big events, and we'll use that other $3,000 for smaller events.
But then going back to the expense for the actual
Sure.
events, how are they decreasing?
We're not providing as much equipment for those events as we have in the years past. I keep trying to bring things back. Like this year for the Restaurant Festival, if you're a restaurant, you can order through us 25 different things for the Restaurant Festival. That makes it easier for you to be there. It makes it extremely much more difficult for us to take care of that and more expensive. So we've been trying to cut back on those lists of equipment and supplies that you can purchase through us as kind of like the third party. And then we go out and hire a company to come in and bring that and set it up for you the day of. We're putting a bit more onus back on the actual vendors at the events. So that should shave a significant amount of dollars off. We used to, like just for the Restaurant Festival, we used to offer stoves and all kinds of cooking equipment. That's gone. It's too much of a pain in the butt to take care of that day of the event.
Thank you.
Sure.
Questions?
What do you got? I got cough drops.
Nervous, I'm gonna start hacking. The Swinging Summer Thursdays. Why are you bringing them back? Like, how do you envision them? Are they going to be the same? Are they going to be different?
They would be smaller. I was thinking they were 2 blocks. In years past, they were the east side and west side of High Street for 2 blocks. This year, or in 2024, if we even do that, we may still stick with the concert series, which I have budgeted money for the concert series, but also the sponsorship dollars for the Swinging Summer Thursdays back in the day, because they were downtown events, they drew more popularity. I mean, we get 2,000-3,000 people at an event, where I'm, lucky to get 500 at a concert in the park. And my goal with the concerts in the park was kind of a spin-off of the Swinging Summer Thursdays, music, some vendors, some entertainment. And I wanted to spread them throughout the borough to the smaller parks. And over the last 2 years, unfortunately, even with, advertising and sponsorship dollars, we just haven't gotten the numbers of people there. But I know that if we bring an event, any event you bring back to downtown, you're going to draw a number. I just wouldn't do it in the size and scope as we have in years past, at least not in year 1 for sure.
Do you envision working with the bid
Yes.
to really bolster the businesses?
Yes. One thing that we didn't get to it to this year, we hope to next year, working with the bid and John, we want to do some more events at the quote unquote activation stations during the Gay Street closure, which again, our program coordinator would be really the lead on that. She was with it this year. We just didn't quite get to it. We have a lot of really good ideas to use those spaces. I don't know if you've heard of any of them. They'd be events within themselves, but they're already taking place during the Gay Street closure. So the cost to close the streets is already there. We just have to provide the entertainment to bring the people out. So yes, we have some ideas in mind, definitely.
Looking at the parking midweek, some midweek events are always a plus in my mind. So I'm not against it. I'm just asking
No,
questions.
of
Thank
course.
you.
Okay.
Since the blocks are already closed from Friday to Monday,
Yes.
you're asking for another Thursday to shut them down. Why can't you just incorporate them into Friday
It's an idea.
and and then bring the 3,000 people that you can get and have because there's so many dead spots on Gay Street.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you could walk and be in a shadow, so it would be probably, and it would also help the restaurateurs wouldn't have to spend the money to bring their own entertainment in. So Friday, my mind would be a much better, you swing just as much on Friday as you can on Thursday.
Yes, you
Thursday.
can. Yes, you
know what I
can.
mean? So just thought.
Or maybe we close another night, Thursday night, in addition to Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Swinging Summer Thursday just being the name, but yeah, there are ideas Thursdays, Fridays, Saturday afternoon, Sundays. There are some ideas that we're kicking around, not necessarily in the Swinging Summer Thursday, but bringing more activity to the Gay Street closure. Cool.
One final question, the idea about the bus trips, I'm just curious.
Sure.
I've never done one
Sure.
through the borough, but is it all borough residents?
No,
Or do you have folks outside the borough?
It's open to any and all. There would be a resident rate and a non-resident rate. You have to provide when you log into our online portal, our online system, that's how you would register, and it automatically knows whether or not you're a resident or a non-resident. There would be different rates for resident and non-resident. We've done both. We've collaborated on trips with West Goshen in the past. Same thing with East Goshen. I only want to bring back this certain number of trips just the first year, just to show you that, hey, they can work, and maybe we would expand, in 2025.
I know, I have never done one of the trips, but I know some people who very much enjoy them. So I think it's a wonderful thing if that can come back.
Okay.
Yeah, I've done one.
They're a good time.
Yeah, I've done one to New York. I think it was a play.
One of the we've done Broadway. We've done overnight trips to up and down the coast. The Finger Lakes trip is always a big one.
Used to supply like a restaurant and snacks on the bus and then the play. So it was always a good event. We used to go to the casinos too. I think.
That's before me. When Kathy was here, they did the casinos.
Yes,
I proposed to my wife on a trip to the Niagara Falls.
If you need another endorsement,
Said yes.
I've done many of them. They're awesome.
Yeah, they were always great.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't go anywhere. You are item C, bat boxes.
Okay. There's so much information out there on bats. What I presented here, if you want to go to the first click there, Bill, please. Going through the PA Game Commission, I found this information. We can literally order the bat boxes, have them delivered. Our public works guys and put them together. We could maybe even potentially get Eagle Scout troops. One of the members of the Rec Commission is heavily involved with the Scout community. So I think we could go that route. It's really, I guess, more of a policy issue on how and where and how many we would want to do this. The odd thing I found out about researching bats is the good thing about bats is obviously controlling the bug population, killing insects. They're good. The bad thing about bats, if you don't like bats, they're bats. So bringing in potentially hundreds, if not thousands of bats to the borough is a decision I don't want to make. I don't foresee them being issues. I have heard no complaints over at Hoops Park. Obviously, Hoops Park is our largest park, so it's really in the middle of the park. I can see definite benefits from it, especially the users of the parks in the summertime and the insect population being a little bit more controlled. I think it would be a good idea to maybe start this off potentially in 2024 with a few at maybe our larger parks. Potentially, we can work with the Friends of Everhart or Hoops, or potentially one of the other parks. I know that Sue Bain was here a few months ago discussing them and bringing one to Bayard Rustin Park. We would probably want to do some kind of outreach to let people know that, hey, we're bringing bats to the borough. We're providing them a place to live. It's going to be good for everyone, but at the same time, there are bats coming to the borough. So that's the best way I can describe it.
I think it's a great idea. I'm not really sure, but there's no ask here or.
No, it's just, again, I don't know if there is an ask. I mean, I don't know if you want me to get more research or you want me to talk to the friends groups of the parks or how you want me to go about this. Again, I don't foresee a negative. In general, I don't foresee a negative. Again, if you don't like bats, and I don't know what our population is like, but
So is the ask that you'd like to see bat boxes in all the parks?
would you like to maybe do a trial run at a few parks in 2024?
I'm not opposed to putting them all right now. Just, I'm not sure why we're talking about it.
Well, when we were speaking about the last month, I was asked to bring some more information
Yeah,
about bat boxes.
Some of the residents came up and they were, especially Sue Bain down around Penn Street, because I'll show my Delco, the creek down there. It has a lot of bats down in that area, and they need a place to roost instead of people's houses. So the thought was to start putting them in the parks and keeping them, that's where they're basically flying around anyway. And put a couple up and see if they work. I don't know who's going to go up there and check vacancies. But the fact is,
They're pretty much maintenance free, correct?
Yeah, I mean,
oh yeah, except for the dropping.
I was gonna say, you got to worry about the bat guano. That would be an issue you have to worry about on whatever pole guano
Okay, great.
uh,
That's not what I call it.
from Pet Cemetery, not Pet Detective. Yes. Again, if you get a maternity house, a bat maternity house, which has a significant number of quote unquote rooms or areas for the bats to go, there could be a lot of fecal matter. And that would be, I'm not going to look back over the Dons, but that would be an issue we'd have to take care of.
So may I ask you something?
Sure.
Are we committed to having bats in the borough? Because, I mean, seriously, bats have always been a problem in certain areas of the borough. We've always had bats in the chimneys and in the attics. And I mean, I'm like, if you want some bats, I can relocate.
Well, that, to speak, like Bernie said, to say that, I mean, to provide the correct or adequate locations within the parks would hopefully move those populations away from the residential areas and to the parks. But again, that's a question to ask. That's the kind of the question I'm asking. I think maybe one or two more in certain parks to see how they're working, to see if there are any issues. I've heard no issues, nothing but positive returns from Hoops Park so far, excuse me. But again, it's in the middle of our largest park. Putting one at Bayard Rustin, which is one of our smaller parks, I'm not sure what the outcome. I don't have a lot of experience with bats.
The person who lives across from Hoops Park and has flying squirrels in her attic that I have to get rid of every year. The fact of having bats just makes my skin crawl.
I want to speak to that. The bat boxes are not nobody's bringing bats to
No,
the
they're
borough.
here.
We are not importing bats. We're not breeding bats. We're not doing anything. The bats are here. We're trying to give them a house so that maybe they get out of people's houses. I think I'm not scared of bats. I can tell some other people might not like them. And I totally understand that that is something that makes people uncomfortable, but they're a huge benefit. And no, nobody wants them in their house. So I think this is a very helpful thing to people who don't like bats. Just give them a place to live. Give them, these little creatures are looking for a home and they're super helpful to the environment. Yes, we would need to clean up underneath them if they're in a public play area. So like, I think this is a very good thing. I think it helps move bats out of homes, but we do need to take action. So I'm for putting them everywhere ASAP.
Yeah, in the parks, I think we should try them.
Okay.
And since Mike Dunn doesn't mind climbing, we'll let Mike Dunn go up there and hug him. But I'm gonna tell you, there's no vacancy sign going to be on the
No.
borders of the borough that they're all going to say, hey, let's go over Everhart Park.
Couple rooms down the street.
So I agree with Ms. Vicario. We have to give them up, maybe drive them away from the houses if they're there.
Sure.
And send them to where they belong. So.
Is that something you can actually do though? You know, if they're in one location, a lot of them, can you actually, will they migrate to another location? Is that a
Well,
thing?
What I did find out, which I didn't realize, was bats do migrate like birds. They leave in
Across
the winter and they go south. And they do migrate. So, and I guess they're like geese that come back the same spot. But if you seal up your house in the wintertime where you think they're coming in, it's not hard to find where they're coming in because they leave you a gift. Seal that up and hopefully the new bat boxes in the parks will give them another spot to go live. So.
Well, with this said, I was just reading back over the information that I had in one of the next slides. Right around this time of year is when they're leaving their summer quarters and they're starting to migrate and look for their mines and their caves to hibernate. So let me speak to some of the friends groups and see what we can do. I can come back in October with a little bit more information about where we can get some more of these houses and exactly what size and what style, what kind of condos we're getting for these guys, and then we'll go from there.
Tyler Arboretum has some awesome bat houses that are highly used. Like you can go in and the
Really?
last time I was there was years ago, but you could just peek at all the little bats in there. They were all curled up. It was a thing. So I would reach out maybe to some of these more public spaces that do use them.
Okay.
And ask
Go
what
from
the
there.
deal is.
Or alternatively, we could just let residents know that this is potentially a positive thing to do, put up their own bat boxes, and we don't have to deal with it as a council.
That's fine. All right. Cool.
Okay, moving on. Action items. 4A, approve the sale of items TBD.
Would you like for me to describe the items?
I think we can all see. Does anyone have any questions about the
Works
police
for me.
SUV, et cetera? Thank you.
Right.
I think that's a 3-0. Approved July and August 2023 meeting minutes. Approved, 3-0. Thank you. Oh, any other business? Darrell, so sorry.
Darrell Cook, South Walnut Street. I'm wondering what time High Street will be closed for the restaurant festival.
All streets will be closed in the borough of Westchester for the restaurant festival on Sunday from 7 a.m. to 9 or as close to 9 o'clock as we get them reopened. The Public Works Department starts approximately 6:30 on Sunday morning, but it takes them a good 45 minutes to get around the entire perimeter to close the streets. So the downtown will be non-travelable between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, meeting is adjourned at 8:30.